Bill progressed through the Maine House today that would create an office of the child advocate. The House voted unanimously to create the office, which would be within the Department of Administrative and Financial Services. It would provide oversight to state agencies and make sure children in the state's child welfare, children's behavioral health, and juvenile justice systems are receiving essential services in an appropriate manner. Supporters say it builds on an existing program in a way that focuses on the well-being of some of the most vulnerable kids in the state.
Collectively, these provisions would ensure the office has the information it needs to assess issues and provide feedback across systems while protecting the privacy of the children, youth, and families it serves.
The child advocate will investigate complaints, share information with the public, and advise policymakers on how we can center the best interests of Maine kids in every decision we make.
That bill now moves to the Senate.